r/NoSleep. Posted by u/Dwovar. My hometown has rules. Rule 1. I live in a small town, about 1,500 people and the embodiment of a central Ohio farm community. Downtown Donuts is a mom-and-pop treat. They make the best French crawlers, even though they're Korean-American. Winderson's Feed and Seed is a hub of gossip and commerce, as Old Maid Winderson also owns the train station and definitely plays favorites. And the Buckeye Bar is the pillar of the community, cleaner than any bar I'd been to when I got my ag degree at University of Tennessee. Town Hall is the actual home of large town hall meetings where we discuss everything and anything that needs fixing. Potholes? Town Hall. Wild dogs hunting livestock? Town Hall. Hate the mayor's new buzz cut? Town Hall. This place is practically a stereotype and that doesn't seem to bother anyone who lives here, except a few edgy high schoolers. I've never loved this town and if I'm honest, I hoped that I would be leaving it behind me with my bachelor's degree. But 6 years of tuition killed my bank account and that meant moving back in with my step-parents. I ought to have mentioned that. Lots of kids in my town have a step-parent, although only a few have two. My mom left the picture pretty soon after I was born and my dad remarried. I only have one memory of my mom and it's pretty vague. She had an eye patch and she was adding a bunch of glitter and rhinestones to it. I don't know exactly how old I was, but I remember wanting it so bad it hurt. That's all I remember of her, but I know she didn't stick around long. I don't remember why my mother left. Maybe she was tired of this town. Living here kills the soul. She wasn't from here anyway. Neveah called her that city bitch and I always figured between the stress baby me and the rules she just left. This first time my dad broke one of the town rules, he vamoosed and left me with my stepmom Neveah. That hurt more than mom leaving did, probably because I got to know him. He was a kind and loving father, my personal superhero for 11 years and 3 months. I didn't take second to anything on this earth in his eyes. Neveah remarried a man named Duck and gave me a semi-functional family again. That happened a decade and a half ago, so Duke and Neveah are the only parents I've known for the last 15 years. They're good people even if they are flawed. But everyone's flawed. Neveah works too much. She's always down at the Buckeye Bar sprucing things up or crunching numbers, making sure the place runs smoothly. Duke is a good man when he's present, mentally that is, but he spends a lot of time with his head just out in space. His eye patch is pretty cool, or it was until I got culture shocked at college. Now the Dixie flag eye patch is just cringe-worthy. Ohio isn't even a southern state. Still, he married Neveah so he can't be racist, just misguided. What was I on? Oh, Dad, he was another story. Not racism I mean, just him leaving. I remember the last day he went to buy donuts. He was supposed to be gone and back but it was 8 o'clock and he'd been hungover. Let me clarify something here in a feeble defense of my father. He was not a drunk, nor was he prone to substance abuse. Quite to the contrary, he and Neveah had been celebrating his promotion to shift manager at Winderson's Feed and Seed. I don't know about anyone who's not from the middle of farm country, but the feed and seed is a big deal in town. It pays well enough, but managers get more, and there's a lot of prestige that comes from holding that position, and Old Maid Winderson has always made it known she hires up from inside. Dad had a lot to celebrate and he and Neveah did with gusto. Dad rolled out of bed late that day, which didn't matter because it was Saturday and he was off. He had a hankering for donuts, which he loudly announced several times within earshot of Neveah, who responded with a groaning. I smiled at Dad. I was 11 and he was my hero, not just because he stuck around when Mom bolted but because he was a great dad. I knew a lot of stuff because of him. He leaned way down, wincing as he did. What do you think, boy? Do donuts sound good? I nodded, big grin spreading across my face. Do you think Neveah is going to get up and go get us any? I giggled and shook my head. Our conspiratorial conversation made all the more fun because he was whispering. What could we possibly do about that? He grinned from ear to ear, even though I could see his eyes were still bloodshot from their celebrating. Maybe I could get donuts, I whispered, putting my hand beside my mouth to hide it's my talking. You could give me $50 and I'll bring back the whole stock. Dad rubbed his chin. That's a lot of donuts, who would eat them all? I pointed at myself, suppressing a giggle. My dad's eyes went wide, they were the prettiest green. You. He shouted, that's a lot of donuts for a little kid. Nuh-uh, I countered with all my wit. Puffing out my belly and chest I straightened to my full, sitting, height. I'm a big kid, I'm almost ready for 6th grade, mister. Neveah's groan echoed out of the bedroom again. She sounded like a zombie movie. Dad poked my belly with a finger and my held air gushed out. You'll wake the dead. Looking back, I realized Neveah didn't drink much, but I didn't know that yet. You don't want her to come and get you. He grabbed at my sides and tickled me until I squealed. Are you getting donuts or what? The kid has got to be hungry by now. Neveah moaned, her feet shuffling onto the cheap carpet of our apartment. My squeal must have rattled through my dad's hangover because his eyes got pained and he winced. His oof was soft though, and he still smiled at me, his overbite noticeable at this angle. He pulled on his boots and WF&S, Winterson's seat and feed, hat and shuffled out the door. That was the last time I saw him act like Dad. Mrs. Jiang said he'd showed up at 8:07 and been browsing the donuts when 8:10 hit. She and her husband heard a shout of surprise seconds after the 8:10 bells rang. They kept their eyes closed the whole time he was screaming and crying and cursing, all the way until 8:25 had passed. Then called the doc. Shit, I forgot to mention the doctor. He has a name, but we all call him the doc. The doc is a good man by every measure. Doesn't charge people who break the rules even though he could make 'em in if he did. Takes everyone's insurance or whatever anyone could pay to get fixed up if they didn't. I have it on good account that he accepted 2 eggs and a pretty flower for an eye surgery. I'm told he delivered me, which makes sense, because he's older than sin but sweeter than sugar. Anyway, Dad, in his hungover stupor, had broken the first rule. They're posted all over town, as if we could forget. Close your eyes from 8:10 to 8:25 both AM and PM. He had been too hungover to react to the 8:10 bells and it cost him his left eye. Mrs. Jiang had a cut-off cup bottom on hand, most of us do anymore, and had gauze wrapped it over his left socket until the doc got there. The eye had been fully enucleated. Severed clean out, optic nerve, ophthalmic artery, and every small muscle neatly severed. This wasn't that rare. It seems every year 1 or 2 people break a rule either on accident or because they're unusually drunk or just because they're new or stupid. Or both. It was just one of those things you thought would never happen to you or someone you cared about, like car crashes or STDs. The doc rewove the gauze and he and Mr. Jiang loaded Dad into the back of the doc's ambulance. The way Ms. Jiang told it, Dad was crying the whole way, trying to say stuff that wasn't quite words except cold which he would repeat at irregular intervals. Our hospital, or what we call a hospital, is 2 floors and a little bigger than a nice house. Most of it is original with 4 beds and some pretty average medical stuff I quite frankly don't know much about. But our little 1-room surgery ward is top-notch for eye removal and replacements. The town saved up on an extra gas tax for 3 years to pay for it and everyone was excited. As I recall, we bought it when I was about 7 and it was the talk of the town. Lots of people with one eye looked forward to well-installed prostheses. After Dad got better, which took 2 hours or so because the doc is just that damn good, he came home and didn't talk for 3 days. On the first day he didn't do anything at all. Just sat on the couch staring through the wall all the way out to nothing. He didn't move even when I hugged him, even when I crawled in his lap. Not even when Neveah brought him food and something to drink. Not even, as I peeked out my cracked bedroom door, when Neveah put on some lace and wiggled in his lap. It was like the body was there but the rest of him was just gone. I think at some point he fell asleep with his eyes open because the next morning he was still sitting there. The second day was better and worse. He acknowledged the world around him existed, he just didn't care. When I talked to him he looked at me like a weird bug or maybe like a new toy that doesn't make sense. Neveah would talk to him too, but he just stared through her and she stopped. He ate, which was a relief because it had been just over 24 hours, and drank a little water instead of his normal morning coffee. 3 times he went to the bathroom for a few minutes then came back out. He kept going back to the sofa and staring out at the nothing. I eventually started playing at his feet, rolling my tank over his boots. He hadn't removed them, like they were hills, and hiding my army men behind the heel. At bedtime, for some reason I couldn't understand, I peeked through my door again tonight. Neveah didn't try what she did last night. I remember a vague sense of disappointment. I still feel uncomfortable about that evening. The third day was the hardest, on me and everyone else. Dad was up to talking but his whole demeanor was changed. He wasn't kind or angry or sad. He just stopped having any emotions at all. I would tell him I loved him and he'd say it back, but there wasn't any spirit in it. Neveah was getting stressed, her hair was badly unkempt and its unruly curls stuck out at random. She cooed and coddled him, always hugging. He returned the hugs, but with limp arms and no squeeze. I cried to Neveah that night, while Dad was out on the sofa, staring into the distance. She held me and promised it would get better. That this happened when people broke rules but Dad would recover. The day after he started packing. He had regained his animation and spirit, but he was bitter and angry. Got my damn warning. He grumbled, pulling drawers out of their dresser and dumping clothes in. Not going down there, Not me, not going down there at all. His movements were angry and violent. Everything had to be slammed, nothing could just be dropped or put down. Goddamn rules. He shouted occasionally. Neveah tried again and again to reason with him, begging and pleading. Dad wouldn't have it. He shouted back while still packing. I ran over, desperate to keep him, and grabbed his free arm. Please Dad, please stay. He threw me off him in a way he never had before. I stumbled over a dresser drawer and fell, splinter digging into my inner elbow as I landed awkwardly. Ow. Dad? Dad whirled on me and Neveah intercepted him. I'm not staying in this goddamn death trap any longer. Come on boy, we're leaving. Neveah interrupted my small voice, we can't go and you know it. We won't have any income and I can't leave my mother. Why are you acting like this? Dad ripped the eye patch off his head. An obvious glass eye lolled, you know damn well why Neve. We're all going to end up in the basement, you know it. Get your shit in the car. His eyes blazed with spite and hate and 100 other evil emotions. I can't honestly believe, even now, that I've ever felt such a conflagration of ill will. I was scared of him. In that moment all the kindness and fatherly love didn't mean boo. I couldn't go. He stared at me and I didn't move. I scooted slightly away from him and he took the hint. You better get the fuck out of here before you lose it too boy. You only get one warning. He jabbed a finger in the air, meaning it for me I was sure. I didn't know this man. He couldn't be my father. He slammed the bag shut, marched out to the car, and drove out of my life. Neveah and I watched the car go, thinking he was going to turn around. The first couple days we were sure he'd be back soon after calming down. Losing your eye is no walk in the park and we knew he must have taken it hard. We waited for weeks but he never came. One day, 3 months later, Neveah sat me down at dinner. Well kid, we have a problem. She said earnestly, looking me in the eyes. What is it? I asked. I think I already had an inkling of its nature. Well baby, you're not mine, not by blood. And I don't think you're. Her voice failed her then. But I knew what she was trying to say. You don't think he's coming back, do you? Neveah's eyes were watery. It hurt to say it out loud. No baby, I don't think he is. She took a deep breath. And once people realize that someone is going to have to take care of you. And it's not like he's Dea, she stopped herself, he's passed away. They need to find a place for you. But I have a place. Isn't this my place? I pointed at my room and all around in a big circle. This is my place. It's where my stuff is. Neveah smiled sadly, in that grown-up way that infuriates kids. Yes baby, your stuff is here. But not your family. Someone is going to come and see where you want to be. You have a mother out there somewhere and you've got me here, but I'm not your blood. I don't want my mom, she left. I want you and I want my dad. I heard someone crying and realized it was me. I want everything normal. Neveah shushed me gently, I want that too baby, I do. But I think he's gone for good. Or if he is coming back it won't be soon. She put her hand on mine. But if you want to stay here with me, I'd like that. I sniffled, I know that because I was embarrassed of my tears. I wanna stay. I whispered, maybe he'll come back anyway. Yeah baby, maybe he'll come back. I knew she didn't believe it. Her voice was thick with something. Guilt maybe, or sorrow. At 11 I didn't bother thinking about how much my stepmom was hurt. I was the center of the world and the town rules had yanked out one of my accesses. So that's when and why Dad left. Neveah couldn't really leave. Her mother was getting senile and she had to take care of her. Besides, Neveah owned the profitable bar and losing that money scared her. The rules are pretty straightforward anyway, so if you just remember and don't get too drunk you're pretty well safe. Most of the time. Based on my time on Reddit, lots of people think they're mentally disciplined, but no one has anything on this town. Do you know how hard it is to close your eyes for 15 minutes and not fall asleep, to just sit there waiting to hear a bell for what seems like forever? It's torture, but failing it is what broke my father, so I do it twice a day from 8:10 to 8:25 morning and evening. Because that's the first rule, close your eyes from 8:10 to 8:25 am and p.m. every day.